How we see others is how we are going to treat them. If we see them as objects, we're going to treat them as objects. If we see them as worthless, as property, or as a means to an end, then we will treat them accordingly. If we see them as a person guilty of a crime, then that is how we will act around them. If we see them as a condemned sinner, then we will act accordingly. If we see them as an enemy, we will treat them as such. If we see them as a friend, we will treat them as a friend. If we see them as family, then we will treat them as family. If we see them as a creation of God, a genuine child of God, a vessel carrying the Spirit of Christ, a walking shrine, housing the living God, then we will respond to them in that way. We may not even be fully conscious of how we are seeing the other person, but this holds true regardless, that we will treat them how we view them. How do you love someone as yourself? How do you treat them like you treat yourself? You see them as yourself. You put yourself in their shoes. You attempt to feel what they feel and understand how they arrived at where they are at. You become them, and they you in that moment. If you see the other person as other, then you will treat them as other. If you see the other person as yourself, you will treat them like you treat yourself. How can I love the person I don't even like? See Jesus in them. Imagine not this person that you don't like standing next to you, but Jesus himself in every person around you. Imagine that just as God is omnipresent, so he is also experiencing what you are experiencing through you, and he is experiencing what that other person is experiencing through them. And so, when you are kind to this person you may or may not like, you are being kind to God. When you are hurting or being violent towards this other person, you are hurting or being violent towards God. Mother Teresa, when asked why she helped the poor, the dying, and the outcasts in India, replied, "Because I see Jesus' face when I look at them." In many ways, this is the simplest and most basic of Christian practices towards discipleship, and learning to love God, our neighbor, our enemies, and one another. Jesus taught, "Just as you have done to the least of these my brothers, you have done it to me." Understanding this in a more literal sense is a useful and profoundly effective exercise for the disciple of the way. Doing away with the mentality of the other, separating I from you and us from him, is the only real practical way to fulfill the two great commandments: to love God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your strength, and all of your mind, and to love your neighbor as yourself. In the first 3 verses of 1 Corinthians 13, Paul explicitly says that a person could speak every language, even angelic ones, know everything, see and understand every mystery, have the kind of faith or trust to relocate mountains, give everything they own away, and even hand over their own body to be burned. But for all of this, he says that if they do not possess love, they have nothing, are nothing, and it helps them nothing at all, not one thing. According to Paul, it doesn't matter what you say, what you do, or what you know. If you do not possess love, it's all worthless and for nothing, and so are you. There really can be no overstating the profound implications of Paul's statements in these 3 verses, because they coincide with John's explicit statement in his first letter. The person not loving doesn't know God, because God is love. Why is it all worthless and for nothing without love? Because whatever else it may be, it's worthless without the God who is love. It is good for nothing to anyone if it isn't born from God who is love. This is why the 2 most important commands in the Gospels are to love God with everything you've got and to love your neighbor as yourself. Add to these his instructions to love your enemies and just to love one another as he loved us. If it isn't born from love, it isn't born from God. And if it isn't born from God, then the action, word, or thought is worth nothing. As John also wrote, the person who makes their home in love makes their home in God and God within them. What is the mark, the indicator that someone is genuinely operating from God or the Spirit of God? Love. What is the sign that their religion or beliefs or practices are valid? Love. What is it that God wants most of all from us? Love, mercy, compassion, forgiveness, non-judgment. And these are the things which Jesus himself explicitly taught. The person who doesn't display love isn't a disciple of Jesus Christ, no matter what they say. The foundational nature of love in one's faith and practice cannot be overstated, because if it isn't present, if it can't be seen in that person, then nothing they say or do is originating from God, and they should be, at best, ignored and guided back to it, and at worst, actively opposed for the deceiver and liar that they are. Virtually everything else can be tossed to the wayside in terms of belief structures, as far as God is concerned. But this one point is absolutely mandatory, that what we do, what we say, and who we are is born from love and possesses love, because if it doesn't, then we don't know him.